podcast. Let's go live.
Oh, the description at the bottom?
Uh huh.
That's from last week.
Yeah, they switched everything up, so you have to do it right before you go,
Oh, okay.
which is the stupid. It was working beautifully before they did the update. Now you have to edit right before you go. Okay, start streaming. Start the timer, and we'll start recording on the mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to the Awakened Collective, where we explore the topics of love, spiritual consciousness, and our divine purpose on this planet. Join us as we uncover the truth that our thoughts shape our reality. Welcome to the Awakened Collective. I'm Rick Gregory, and it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. It is a great day to be alive, to be a spiritual being having a human experience. And thank you to Daniel Anderson and Audio Alchemy Productions for the gift they are to the world and helping all of us get our voices out. And as always, folks, I want to remind you that you have never, ever been separated from your Creator by whatever name you choose to call your Creator. You are the divine extension of your Creator's love on this planet, and we have never been separated from one another. You are loved unconditionally and have always been forgiven. Our greatest difficulty in finding this God, by whatever name you choose to call God, is the concept of God. Let's face it, we've all been handed down concepts of God. Where did we come from? Where are we going? We ask questions as kids. I know that I was really involved as a kid, and I grew up Catholic. I'm in the Catholic Church, and I just wanted to know about this God, and where is a kid going to learn? We ask questions, oftentimes from people who are doing their best to give us answers. And we carry that stuff with us. And there's been a lot of injury. I mean, you can look at history in general. In the name of God, in the name of Christianity, there has been a lot of harm done. So I get it. The term. And I know in the rooms of recovery, when folks come in, and I've said this before, when I'm working with people and we get to the steps that talk about surrendering ourselves or, basically recognizing our need for this God, paraphrasing, of course. And folks leave because their memory, their thoughts, their conditioning about, or their concepts that they hold that have been handed to them, and they've been injured and they don't want anything to do with this God. But what if we could have our own understanding? The God of our understanding. And I've said this before as well. If we all sat down and made a list of the characteristics of a God that we could do business with, and we shared those lists with one another, we would find that they are quite similar. My understanding certainly has evolved over the past even several years. And as many of you know, and I've shared here before, I pastored a church for a number of years. And I had ideas, and I had thoughts, and I had conceptions, and I had collected information over decades like all of us. I had listened to those people who were much more intelligent, much more educated than I was, and grabbed onto what they believed to be true and spouted those things off as my truth. When in fact many of those things were diametrically opposed to what I was holding in my own gut. So my understanding has changed from an understanding of a religious God, a guy in the sky with a beard, a God who was out there somewhere. It's changed from this anthropomorphic view of God, which is basically assigning human characteristics to this God and human emotions of anger and disappointment and sadness, to an understanding today that God is spirit without gender. God is the ground of all being. God is source, the energy of all things. God is divine intelligence. God is a frequency for me today, unconditional love. That is my understanding. What's your understanding of God today? The purpose of this podcast, and I believe my life purpose, is to help people's hearts to awaken to love. You can't see it, but we've got a sign up here in the studio with my logo, the Awaken Collective, awakening hearts to love, elevating collective consciousness, and transforming the human journey. That's what we desire to do. And our consciousness has evolved over eons. I mean, perhaps no one generation has experienced a profound evolution of consciousness. And by that, I mean awakening, a human awareness. We certainly have seen generations that have seen a huge advance in knowledge and understanding. I remember as a kid having, the Encyclopedia Britannicas that I had to use to get my homework done. And today we have AI. So certainly knowledge has increased. But human awareness, there has been a significant evolution. It wasn't that long ago that slavery was an accepted practice. I mean, how crazy is that? And it wasn't abolished in the United States until 1865, and still took some time to really see that go away. And the last country to formally abolish slavery was a country called Mauritania in West Africa, and that was in 1981. And they didn't criminalize it until 2007. But that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the evolution of human consciousness, the awakening to realize that, man, this is wrong. Let's take a look at this. And while it's difficult to measure awakening scientifically, there are many who feel that humanity is going through a shift, a rapid shift in awareness, moving toward a more compassionate and conscious way of being with greater self-understanding, interconnectedness, and concern for the well-being not only of our planet but of others. Whether this will lead to a lasting transition, we don't know. I believe and hope it will. But the perception of accelerating consciousness is certainly prevalent, and it's being talked about. And my heart's desire, as I just said, is that it will continue to increase, that we would awaken to who and what we are, where we have come from, and our purpose on this planet, that we would awaken to the fact that we are co-creators with the divine, created by love. We are the idea of God, and an idea can never be separated from its source. And there is no greater power than love. And that love is within us. I'm sure you've all read it. The kingdom of God is within us. And just as we can't remove our DNA from these physical forms, these physical bodies, we can no more be separated from our spiritual source. And there have been many awakened, enlightened teachers throughout the ages that have taught us this. And Jesus, the chief of all, who taught us and showed us that love is the answer. And taught us that if we can grasp the truth of his teaching, awaken to it, he said, greater things would we do. And I'm sure I wouldn't have too many people disagree with me that this world right now is one hurting place. And I, for one, believe that we, I'm not waiting on a God in the sky to come and fix it. There are many who are waiting, we're waiting 2,000 years plus for the return of Jesus, the return of God to fix this. When I believe the answer has been within us all along, and that God is waiting on us. I've never been an avid, ferocious, whatever the right word is, reader. I just haven't been. It's never been a thing for me. I mean, I've read books, certainly. I've read the Bible. I pastored a church, but I've just never been an avid reader wanting to grab books everywhere I go. And A few years back, my son Andrew handed me a book by Dr. David Hawkins called Letting Go, and I've mentioned that. It's actually one of the books that you'll find with many of the books that I've read that have impacted my life that are on a tab in my webpage at theawakencollective.org. But that book changed my life. It literally changed my life. And my library has grown exponentially as a result, because in those books of David Hawkins, which I've read most of, he would often refer to other books, and that would spark an interest to pick up that book, and I would read that book. And I have got books all around me. I've got a pile of them by my bed. Most of them I've read, but I have a few that I'm still working on. I just can't seem to get enough. And it's not like I said, I'm not like I'm seeking them out. They're coming across my path, and it's amazing how they just all dovetail one to the other. And there are these books that I've picked up recently. It's a series, and it's called Conversations with God, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. And it's no different. Those came across my path in a kind of a different way as well. I was in Barnes and Noble. And in a book section that I like, with all kinds of books like this. And this one stood out to me on a shelf, and I went and picked it up, and I began to just read the back of it, as we typically do, or the foreword, and it really sparked an interest in me. But at the same time, I thought, man, I've got so many books, and I've got several that I haven't read. Do I really need another one? So I went to go put the book back on the shelf, figuring I would wait. And you know what? I could not find where I had picked that book up from. And I'm a stickler with things like that. I like to put things back where I got them. In fact, it was just a few weeks prior to that, we were in Barnes & Noble, and I was looking for a book, and they only had one copy left when they looked it up on their computer system, and we couldn't find it anywhere because someone had picked it up and put it in a strange place. I did actually come across it on a table somewhere, but so I'm a stickler for putting things back where I got them, and I could not find where I picked this book up, where the other ones were at on the shelf. And so I took that as a sign, and I said I'm gonna go ahead and get this book. And it's a book. It was a book. It's right here. This was book 2, and it's Conversations with God by an author by the name of Neale Donald Walsch. And I picked it up, and I didn't put it down. I read. After reading a few chapters, I learned, as it said, it was book 2. So I'm thinking, okay, well, where are the other ones? And I found that there were 4 of them. And I finished book 2. I'm now on book 3. And the books, I want to tell you what the books focus on. So the first one focuses on personal spirituality and daily life challenges. We all have those. The second one expands to global issues that we are dealing with and societal transformation. The third one explores universal questions and humanity's place in the cosmos. And the last one, which I have not read yet, emphasizes the awakening of human consciousness and the evolution of the species. And each book builds upon the last. But here's what is really the cool thing for me. The author began this journey with questions. He was in a pretty dark place in his life back in the early 90s, and had a lot of questions, a lot of frustration, questions for God. And he had a legal pad, and he began just writing out some questions without thinking that anything would come of it, but just wanted to note what was going on in his head and in his heart. And what happened following that was that out of the blue, sometime after writing a question, he would get this intuitive thought. And, it wasn't something that he searched for. It kind of dropped in. And I liken this to an experience I had many years ago when I was distraught, and I got this intuitive thought that felt like a coin dropping into a bank. It just came from out of nowhere. And as he would get these intuitive thoughts, he would write them down, and it turned out that these were answers to the questions. Sometimes it would take days, because he wouldn't force any of this. It would take weeks, months. In fact, in one of his books, it took him 3 years to complete it, because he would ask the question and then just walk away and wait. But here's the thing. I believe, we all know the truth in our innermost being. We came to the planet knowing the truth. We came from the truth. But we got here and we were born into this unconscious, dreamlike state, and then conditioned over time via so many avenues, so many sources, education, media, religion, our ancestry, and so many stories are told. And as I've already said just a few minutes ago, we cling on to things because we're sponges and we want to learn and we want to know. And, we are grabbing onto information and holding onto it as truth when perhaps it may not be, and it doesn't actually match what's in our own gut. So, we sometimes will hear those stories, and I know I did. I grabbed onto them hook, line, and sinker, in many cases not realizing that everything I needed was already within me. And it was about getting back to that place, getting back to source, paying attention once again to that inner voice that we're often told to ignore, that intuition, that gut voice, that still small voice. I had to get quiet. Then for me, including me, that conditioning, and then on top of that, life, just what we call lifing, life on life's terms, things that happen that lead to pain and suffering. And for me, it led me to alcoholism. But that pain also led to cracks starting to form and light starting to get through. And there was the beginning of remembering, of waking up. All of a sudden, a journey was beginning of self-reflection, of reevaluating what I had learned. Because I couldn't keep doing the same thing over and over again. I knew I would die if I did. And you know what? That intention, that longing, those dark nights of the soul set that intention in motion that brought me into a new place. And I'm sure many of you out there can agree and have had that experience. So because I believe these books are so important for anyone who is at that place in life where they have just had enough of the grind, they just know there's got to be more. They've had enough of believing that life is just getting out of bed in the morning, eating your meals and shopping and going to work and getting your check and paying your bills and all that goes along with that, and the wash, rinse, repeat. There was a time in my life where I remember standing at the sink in the bathroom saying, I have to brush my teeth again. How many years? It was just seemed like a job just to, I'm like, I've got to shave again. This just when is life going to change? The monotony of it all. And yet I knew in my knower, in that gut, on the inside, that there was more. There was something missing. So I want to do something that I've not done on this podcast. And I want to read a portion of one of these books to you, with the hope that it may spark something in you that would lead you to delving deeper and finding that truly there is more. Finding that all the power of the universe resides within you, and you are here on purpose, for a purpose. In book one, the back of book one of Conversations with God, Neale Walsch writes, suppose you could ask God the most puzzling questions about existence, questions about love and faith, life and death, good and evil. Suppose God provided clear, understandable answers. This is what happened to Neale Donald Walsch, and it can happen to you. When Neale Donald Walsch was experiencing one of the lowest points in his life, he decided to write a letter to God. What he did not expect was a response, with extraordinary answers covering all aspects of human existence, from happiness to money to faith. The resulting book, Conversations with God, was an instant bestseller on publication in 1995, has since sparked several further volumes, selling millions of copies worldwide and changing countless lives everywhere. So I want to read a little bit this morning. And when I read what I'm about to read, for me, it was evident that it aligned with our purpose here at the Awakened Collective. Our purpose here is not unlike this author's purpose. And I'm finding on my journey that there are many out there in the world feeling called to help others remember who they are, remember their purpose for being here on this planet. So I'm going to just read the closing portion of Book 2 and see if this doesn't, I'm not asking you to hear this and hang on to it as your truth if it does not agree with what's in your gut. We've done that enough, folks. So I'm asking you just to listen to this with an open mind, and what clicks with you, you hang on to that, and what doesn't, let it go. Conversations with God is all about the spiritual path of humanity. Your path, my path, and the path that our species is taking collectively. That last part, our collective path, is the main focus of this, the second book in the Conversations with God series. Here, a challenge has been placed squarely before us. This text makes it clear that the way we are doing life on this planet is not working, not very well. In some cases, and some places, not at all. We should be able to do better. We have the intelligence, we have the skill, we have the technology, we have sufficient power over our own affairs to create a world in which all of its people live together in peace and in harmony with sufficiency and safety and serenity, the hallmarks of their experience. A world in which our differences do not create divisions, our contrasts do not create conflicts, and the variations in our beliefs do not produce violence in our lives. There is another way. Yet we will not find that way by searching for it. We will find it only by creating it. And we will not create it by staying stuck in old beliefs, but only by being open to new ideas about God and about life that can truly light the world. This book is about such new ideas. It offers a change of perspective, and this is not unimportant. This is more than a mere intellectual exercise because it is our perspective that creates our perception that creates our belief that creates our behavior that creates our experience, and our experience that creates our reality. It's a circle. It's the clock of eternity, and perspective is at 12 o'clock high. There is only one way that I know of to change people's perspectives. You have to show them that there is another one. Most people think that the perspective they hold is the only way to look at things, at least the only reasonable way. I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to who have said after hearing one of my lectures or engaging in an exchange at one of my retreats, I have never thought of it that way. And I've been struck by that. I've never thought of it that way. When I heard that the 1,000th time, I realized that I was being given a key, a real clue here. I saw that the trick to changing the world is to get people in the world to think about the world in a new way. That may seem obvious to you, but to me it was a revelation, because all I saw all around me were individuals and organizations, all well-meaning and very dedicated, working hard to affect and to change people's behavior, trying to get them to do stuff or not do stuff, rather than to think stuff. All behaviors, I realized, spring from beliefs. No wonder humanity's behaviors haven't changed in millennia. No wonder we are still acting as barbarically as we acted in the Stone Age. Our beliefs haven't changed one iota. Our thoughts about most things are still the same. Specifically, we still believe that we are separate from each other. We still believe we are separate from God. We still believe we are separate from life. We believe that life is happening to us, not through us. We have no idea what's going on here. We have no idea who we really are and what our right relationship is to everything around us. We see ourselves as the victims of our circumstances rather than as the creators of them. No wonder we think there's nothing we can do. Now, if we continue to approach the challenge of altering outcomes on this planet at the level of behavior, we can cause certain behaviors and others to stop. There's no question about that. But only for a while, and only by using force. Why? Because people's behaviors spring from their innermost beliefs. Unless you do something to change beliefs, you will have to coerce them to change their behaviors. You can do this, of course. You can threaten them, you can bludgeon them, you can even kill enough of them until they give in and do something they don't believe in, just to stop you from hurting them. But as soon as the hurting stops, the behaviors reemerge, because belief always gives birth to behavior unless you artificially and forcefully interrupt that natural process. On the other hand, if belief is what is changed, behavioral change will follow automatically. Well, I looked around the world with my newfound perspective and realized that the vast, vast majority of organizations and individuals committed to relieving suffering and ending oppression on the planet were trying to do so at the level of behavior. Hardly anyone was doing so at the level of belief. Wow. Feed the hungry. Clothe the poor, free the oppressed. That's all I saw wherever I looked, but nowhere did I see a global campaign. Change your thinking, end separation, create oneness, unify humanity. And so that has become my task. That's my self-appointed mission, my life's purpose. I've been running around everywhere doing what I can to get people to stand on a new hill, to sit in another chair, to change the place from which they're looking at things, to alter their viewpoints, or at least to get them to see that there may be another viewpoint, to encourage them to look at that, to see if things might look differently, if they would only go there and stand there on that other hill just for a moment. It all starts, I am clear, with our viewpoint about God. For what we believe about God, we put into place in the behaviors of humans. If we think that God loves us only under certain conditions, then we love each other only under certain conditions. If we think that God judges, condemns, and punishes, then we judge, condemn, and punish. If we think that God uses violence punitively and remedially, then we use violence punitively and remedially. We do these things with impunity, even if they are sometimes cruel, for we use God as our moral authority. What is good enough for God is good enough for us, no? How could it be otherwise? And yet, what if our understanding of God is incomplete? What if our ideas about God are limited? What if our beliefs about God are mistaken, at least in part? Could this be so? Are we brave enough to even ask? It was George Bernard Shaw who said, "All great truth begins as blasphemy." I love that. He was right. And so I go around the world blaspheming, and now I'm looking for other blasphemers. I want to change the world's mind about God and about life and about each other. I also want to help people change their minds about themselves. It's my dearest hope and my wildest dream that someday, somehow, people everywhere might see themselves at last as who and what they truly are. Children of God in the truest sense. Individuated aspects of the divine with all the power and glory, magnificence and wonder in micro that God is in macro. A few years ago, I was asked by Matt Lauer on NBC's Today Show, what is God's message to the world? And Matt said he only had 30 seconds, so urged me to keep my answer brief. I told him I could give it to him in 5 words. Here is God's message to the world. You've got me all wrong. Now, if that statement has no truth to it, we have nothing further to discuss. If we think we know everything there is to know about God, and that with regard to our ideas and understandings we've got it all right, then the conversation this book encourages has just ended. The only way this conversation can continue is if we are courageous enough to acknowledge that there may be something we don't fully understand here, the understanding of which could change everything. I am asking you, if you think this might be true, to gather the courage to say so, to summon the strength to invite all those you know to open a new conversation on this subject, to call forth the determination to bring another idea about God into the global discussion. And folks, that is what I am calling on all of you to do today. It's what I expect and call upon myself to do. To have a new conversation on this subject, to call forth determination to bring another idea about God into the global discussion. You know, the word that's used in the Bible for repent is the Greek word metanoia. Do you know what that actually means? Change the way you think. Jesus had it right and taught us all along that it was about our thinking. We've forgotten who we are. He closes in this second book with a prayer that I would just like to read. I really thought this was good. Dear God, we know that you are always with us. We understand that we are not just connected with you, but one with you. We're aware that there is no separation between us. Help us now to bring that experience into our lives and into our world. Let each day and each moment be a living demonstration of this truth. Bring us and all those whose lives we touch the fullness and the richness, the wonder and the wisdom, the peace and the perfection of our true identity, that our lives and our world may be healed. When he stated, change your thinking, end separation, create oneness, unify humanity, and that it was his life's purpose to get people to see things differently, that is our purpose here at the Awakened Collective as well. There is another way to look at things. The way to changing the world is to get people in the world to think about the world in a new way. It is our thoughts that create. We say that here all the time. Our thoughts have created the world we live in today, and thinking differently can change it. Even Einstein said we can't solve our problems with the same thoughts that created them. So let's change our thoughts. As always, you can reach out to me. I've Danny up my webpage there. The webpage is theawakenedcollective.org. It has links to some books I've written, all the books that I have been reading, not all of them, but most of the books that I have been reading that have profoundly changed my journey. There are some I have not updated the webpage with. These new books that I'm reading, Conversations with God, I will get those added. It has all of my social media, including links to YouTube, where all of these videos that we do here in this wonderful studio of Daniel Anderson, Audio Alchemy Productions, all of the videos are on my YouTube channel, the links out there as well. My email, along with coaching services, including if you just want to pick up the phone and call and talk to me for a complimentary call, I would love to chat with you and see what's going on in your life and if there's anything I can do to help you. Thank you for being here today. Let this sit with you, and as I said, hang on to what rings true for you. Do that in life. Discard what doesn't ring true, and hang on to what rings true with you, because the truth is within you. Thanks again to Audio Alchemy Productions, Daniel Anderson. Until next time, my friends, love and kindness, always.